Boozer with CUGC HQ. It's kind of sad because that's the last time I'm going to say that. This is my last CUGC webinar that I'm hosting. For those of you who maybe don't know about the latest updates with the community, I'm putting a link in the chat for you now. But essentially, the community team running CUGC is changing out. Citrix is pulling community in-house, but planning to continue with a new direction in the community that we're all excited to see. So again, I'm happy to welcome you today. I'm sad that it's my last webinar that I'm introducing, but I hope I'll see you all in the EU space going forward. So that is enough of that. So I want to welcome my panelists today. We're going to be talking about all kinds of fun stuff for, keeping your career search skills, your job seeking skills, or just keeping yourself ready and out there, right? So you might not even be actively looking for a job right now, but maybe, that might be coming up in the future, or you just want to stay current. So we're going to talk about all that stuff today. And so our really amazing panel that we have, Esther Barthel, she is a CTP. She is a founding member of the CUGC Women in Tech program, and a lot of other things. She's incredibly smart and amazing. Esther. So hello, Esther. Welcome to the panel.
Wow, after that introduction, there's nothing more to say. I think we're done now.
That's it, all about to Esther.
So much. Those are really kind words, and I'm very happy to be here.
We also have DJ Eshelman. DJ has a long history with CUGC. He's been a group leader. He's in a CTA. He's been, just with us for a long time, and now he is providing his amazing, helpful services to better all of you guys out there and help you with your careers, your professional development. It's really been a fun transition to watch, DJ. So welcome.
Thanks.
We also have Jarian Gibson. Jarian is also a CTP. He's our Kansas City Metro CUGC leader. And it's not on this slide, but what was going to happen next year is a new diversity in tech program. Jarian came up with this idea, wanted to start opening up the mentorship program, and is ready to be a mentor himself. I am told that all of this stuff is going to continue, so I'm very excited to see what goes on with the program next year. But welcome, Jarian. Also, I'd like to also say Jarian and Esther are both Stephanie Roper Community Award members. They've both given so much to the community that they've won those awards, and so I have to mention that too. But welcome, Jarian.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Hopefully we can still keep the diversity stuff going.
I want to, even if I'm not with CUGC. All right, and last but not least, it's just alphabetical. Erik Swanson. Erik came to us with this idea to put together a professional development webinar for the CUGC community. I know Erik, he works out as a recruiter. I think you've worn several hats in the industry, Erik, and you can tell more about that. But I know a big focus here is to take a lot of what you've learned and figured out, throughout all those experiences, and, have this discussion and get people thinking about things they can do, and then just sharing insights of, and having our other panelists share their insights. So welcome, Erik.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to just, if you guys are ready, you want to just go straight to the first slide, or do you want to say anything else before we get into those things? No, just start.
Bring on the slides.
Dive in.
Leroy Jenkins style.
All right, networking. We got a lot of introverts in this community of ours. So And isn't there like a word that's like ambivert or something like that? So like sometimes you're extroverted and sometimes you're not.
I call it a mixtrovert, but some people call it an ambivert. I don't know. I like mixtrovert better.
I'm just proud to admit that I'm an introvert with learned extrovert skills. But one of the things that I learned is definitely introvert is the primary characteristic for me. Yeah.
All right. So how does this group of mixtroverts and introverts accomplish this? Because it can be very daunting, right? So if one of you'd like to take a thread and run with it on that, I would love to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I'll let somebody else. Maybe Eric is a good place to start. I'm actually going to pull up a podcast episode that I'll link for everybody to do the mixtrovert thing. So,
yeah, well, in person and online networking is very important for almost all the categories we're going to talk about, and can be a foundation for your career and skill set and meeting new friends and new colleagues. And I've always was told early on, I went to a lot of end user compute events, and being a recruiter in a room full of engineers and being an extrovert, I was somewhat intimidated and sometimes asked myself, what am I even doing here? I have imposter syndrome. And one of my best friends is in the community, and he's who introduced me about like 6-7 years ago. And his advice was just show up. People are generally good people. They want to meet other people. And if you just show up, people will remember your face. And over a year or two, they'll start to say, hey, I remember this person. And you'll start to meet people and lead to better relationships. So my thing is just show up and try and have a mix of online events, things that come into your inbox. You want to, put those on your calendar, a great chance to learn. And then definitely get out to the events, whatever's going on in your area. There's a lot of networking events out there, both in the EUC community and in tech, and even in other areas of interest, like cycling, where, you might find somebody that has a job opening on the cycling team that you go out for. So I think it's real important. And then lastly, remember who you meet and send them invites on LinkedIn. And you can kind of build your network from there and keep in touch.
Yeah, I kind of want to echo what Eric said as well. For myself, it may not seem like it, but I'm a big introvert, and just showing up is key. I don't think I'd be where I'm at today if not getting out there and networking and being in the community and being able to meet everyone on this call and those out watching and others too as well. One tip as an introvert that I do, especially at events, is try to figure out where you might be able to take a safe space to where you can have a minute to kind of recharge, because you ever hear that term social battery, being an introvert, and that social battery can run out. So being able to find some kind of safe space to recharge during those events, especially the all day ones, like at XLs, sometimes I'll disappear for like 10, 15 minutes, maybe take a walk, maybe just go out and get a breath, maybe just, even text with one of my kids or my wife if I'm traveling. So, try to find that space to where you can actually recharge your battery and then go back, because like I was saying, just showing up and being able to make those connections is very key to networking.
Yeah,
and
most of all, just be curious. Just see this as an adventure to learn something from the other people within your community, because I think everyone has a very exciting and passionate story to share. And if you start by going to these events with this curious attitude, then that already gets you into that let me ask you a question and start connecting with people mode. I think that's also, even for an introvert, I think we all want to see the fire in our well, within the community, within our peers. We want to see that fire in their eyes when they're talking about something that they're very passionate about. So
yeah. So, I mean, pull out my psychology background here a little bit and kind of reinforce what Jarian was saying about the energy thing. That's really how introvert versus extrovert is actually defined. It has nothing to do with whether you're shy or not or anything like that. It really does have to do with how you replenish your energy and how you have a sense of self. And there's really nothing wrong with either. In fact, there's a lot of people in technology that think they're a introvert because they're a little shy, but the reality is they're extroverts. So they'll want to be in these social situations to kind of replenish that energy and feel like they're part of something. And so it's important to just be honest with yourself in that sort of thing. As far as the energy, or, if it's an online event or an in-person event, just recognize your own limits, like Jarian was saying, and yeah, like Esther was saying, and as Sarah said in the comments here, challenging yourself and setting yourself some goals going into something is really key. And that's kind of one of the things that I always coach people on is go into a situation knowing that you're going to face these challenges and try to set goals for yourself and set limits for yourself. It's incredibly important. But the thing that we should note about the networking aspect of this from a professional development standpoint, and especially nobody ever thinks they're going to be a job seeker. It's not something that they really think about, but it's a reality that we all face. So when it comes to networking, one of the most important things is to be very upfront about who you are, what your goals are, and what people should know you for. We'll probably cover this multiple times, but nobody recommends a generalist. They recommend a specialist. And so if you are networking with people and you are learning about them and what they specialize in, and they're learning what you are and what you specialize in, then when it comes to those opportunities, when they come up, you'll be the first one they think of. You'll oh, hey, yeah, I should recommend you to Esther because she's looking for something like this, that sort of thing. Those kind of interactions are possible when you are kind of upfront with people about who you are, what you're looking for, that sort of thing. So that don't shy away from those kind of networking either. It's a very important aspect of this.
That's well said, DJ. I remember early on in my career, I had a situation where I really just told people what I was doing, what I was looking for, and somebody called me up a couple weeks later with a business opportunity, and I wound up getting a new customer. So it does work, believe it or not, just to put yourself out there.
And then as far as online, don't be afraid just to reach out to somebody, that's in a similar thing, someone that maybe you followed via, whether it's Facebook or not Twitter, X, or even LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out. The worst they can do is tell you, I'm busy right now, I can't help you. Or from that, you could make a good friendship over the years. One example I had is early on in the social media days is Shane Kleinert, right? He just reached out to me. He said, hey, we have this community, Citrix IRC. Why don't you come join and check it out? And then since then, been a part of that community, expanded out into the world of EUC and so forth. And Shane and I are actually been pretty good friends now since, I don't know, going on over 10 years, probably 14, 15 years now. So don't be afraid to just reach out, whether it's through the, social media, through chat communities, or just see if you send someone like a message or an email. You never know what happens and how that can grow and how that can also expand your network as well. Even in like just asking a question sometimes can lead to a good conversation about, like, say you're having an issue. And like I said, don't be afraid to ask. Most everybody in this community, they're very respectful. They're very helpful. There are some jokers out there who, kind of might not be the best reception type of people, but for the most part, it's a great community. So don't be afraid to reach out and just ask a question and try to make that connection online.
Yeah. And the other aspect of that too is it's okay to practice your elevator pitch. It's something that people in technology don't always realize is that this is as much a social game as anything. And so if you can practice in front of the mirror, whatever, just say, okay, can I give a summary of who I am and what I do in under 15 seconds or under 30 seconds or under a minute, whatever works for you to be able to do that. That's something to practice ahead of these kind of things. And that way, when you are approached and somebody's saying, hey, what do? You can say to them exactly what it is that you're specializing in and interested in, and what you do to serve, what you do to make money, whatever you want to talk about. Just have it in advance a little bit, and that's just kind of I call that an introvert survival mechanism, to where you can just be practiced with it. You don't have to worry about the social anxiety aspect of it.
Wow, I need to take notes. Because I'm always surprised by that question, what do you do? And then think, oh my God, I do so much, but which one to pick? And then I have like this stress already hitting me. So yeah, practicing definitely would help me out as well. So thanks for that, DJ.
Yeah,
it's almost like Baron Zemo in Captain America Civil War. He introduced himself. He told exactly what he wanted, and he was done and get right to the point. There's kind of your elevator pitch. I know that might be the best example, but he did introduce himself and got right to the point for all user and watch Marvel movies and stuff. So,
and don't always pick the hero as your hero.
Yeah. And another thing about your elevator pitch is when you're out at a social event or you're out at dinner, if you are talking business, it could be tax deductible if you have your own business. So it's always good to talk business and keep the lines of communication open. Spur the economy.
Absolutely. And
some good things in the chat about, like, James Ma says he finds the extrovert in the room and positions himself next to that person. And then I think Sarah said she's pretty sure she clung to him for a while in the same manner. And Owen, didn't see himself being on stage. So yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of that in the community. Actually, we've, over the past 8 years, we've seen people who are nervous about blogging or doing a webinar or presenting at a meeting, but because they found someone to partner with, or maybe it's not a true mentorship, but it kind of is, like looking for those people that can be your mentor or your ally,
or just your cheerleader. That's
what
I like
they
to
can
call myself.
Co-present, they can help nudge you. And so that's what's been so great about this community, is watching people go through that pathway to, from being afraid to stand up in front of the room to doing webinars, speaking at an Excel, applying for CTA, CTP. We've seen a lot of that. And it's, and it is by just taking that leap of faith, right, and reaching out to the people in the community and doing what they can to help you. So don't be scared.
And I will probably get to Brad's question about adapting his employability in the EUC community. I know we're going to talk about interview tips and resumes, but it kind of reminds me, DJ said, have an elevator pitch and let people know you're a specialist. But I also remember Jarian telling me that you want to be a generalist as well. You need to know ancillary technologies such as storage. And as an EUC engineer, you sort of need to branch out and know more than one virtual desktop solution, because if you're a Citrix engineer, a lot of people want a combination of that with maybe Horizon or ABD or Google Cloud Platform or AWS, the workspaces. So just having that diversity and understanding it and having that baseline knowledge to talk about it is huge to answer Brad's question.
Another thing too is just going to be able to talk to different teams across different functions or organizations, right? So, Citrix, like an example, can touch so many things, and that one thing the user sees when there's a problem is they see Citrix, so it's always Citrix. But us on the back end have to be able to say, okay, what tools can I use to prove it's not Citrix, where I can go and actually effectively talk to the networking team, to the storage team, or even to the hardware team to say, look, something's going on here. Here's the data I have. Even in my functions, sometimes I have to go, like, for example, our integration with Citrix, I have to be able to take traces, find the issue that I'm seeing with any kind of integration there, and go to our plugin team or go back to Citrix and say, look, this is what I'm seeing. Be able to have that knowledge to be able to articulate the issue, go to the proper teams and work with them. And that's where that cross-functional generalist type stuff comes into play. You don't have to be an expert in everything, but you needed to know enough to be able to work with those other teams and have those conversations like that.
Yeah.
I think that's a good segue into the next one, because I think this is where we talked about that generalist idea, right? Like where the market is right now. And so I don't know, I feel like that's a good push into that area. Like you're keeping your skills current, but you're also, if you're out there looking, you're also trying to figure out, how to position yourself in that job marketplace, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want to look at Elaine's comment here too. What he said: you don't have to be Erik, DJ, Esther, or Jarian to share and take part. We all have a unique experience and have done something that no one else has done. Every Citrix or EUC implementation is a snowflake, and something is always unique about it. You just have to start with with sharing with your peers, and exactly, and that goes back to don't be afraid to blog or present a session or even just have a conversation, because we all bring our own unique experiences to the table. And, just showing up like DJ and Erik said before and starting somewhere, that's exactly what that's about. That's a great comment, Elaine.
Yeah, I saw Elaine's comment as well. And I also saw his other comment about getting an automation. And I will say from firsthand, I found Elaine on a PowerShell user group for a job once. And he's one of the best PowerShell guys out there. Really knows his stuff. And so, yeah, I wanted to shout that out.
Yeah, a lot of people that I've met through the community, I've been either through forums, through blog posts, once we've gotten together at conferences and just saying, hey, something that you wrote really helped me out or helped me learn something new, thank you. And then you start making that connection and start having that dialogue back and forth with that person or the different people like that. So.
Yep.
So with that, I think you guys, yesterday when we were talking about what we were going to talk about, there was the mention of certifications and how valuable those might be, or, like when you're thinking about keeping yourself marketable, how do you approach it, based on what you're trying to do, I guess. But y'all's thoughts on keeping yourself marketable or making yourself marketable, and the value of those certifications versus experience versus, all that stuff.
I think nothing. Oh,
go ahead.
I think nothing can beat experience. Certifications are great, and it's something that partners are required to kind of keep their standing with the different vendors. And I'm not knocking certifications at all. They're great. But the main thing with certification is how can you apply them, right? Anyone can study up and brain dump and go pass a test, but how can you apply that to the real world, right? Same thing with if you go, maybe college is not always the right path for everyone. Same thing there. You're studying, trying to pass things that way. But again, it comes back to what have you actually learned and how can you apply that to the real world as well. So, hands-on labs, out there just doing any kind of research, reaching out to others, presenting. Sometimes when you have to present a session, there may be things in that session that as you're preparing for that and going through and doing stuff that you might come across things like, oh, I didn't think about this way, or learning something new, just working on the presentation because there's things you want to add that maybe you haven't touched yet. So, hands-on experience, getting that lab time, and just trying to see if you can, back to networking, work with others, to either mentor or be mentored.
Yeah.
Yeah, and basically pick a topic that you feel curious about or enthusiastic about. So one of the things that happened for me is at first I was very much Citrix virtual apps and desktops focused, or Zen app focused, if we're aging me and going with the old terminology back in the days. But one of the things that I discovered is that with PowerShell, it gave me a whole new way to start with automation. And due to the fact, and for me, automation and scripting is all about finding a challenge that I want to dive into and figure out and evolve in. But that's also a downfall, because that means I cannot just script for scripting purposes. I need to have an end goal and a vision of how I want it to, what the end result has to be like, that I'm reaching. And that helps you, if you get some passion and some curiosity about it, that helps you to stay connected and to invest those extra hours to learn the skills. And the other thing is, don't be afraid to fail. And that goes for also for the whole networking and social interactions, because even though I know in our society we are taught that failure is a bad thing, I think we need to readapt to the fact that failure gives us insights on how we can improve ourselves and what our next goals can be. And I think there's so much more to learn from failing than basically always be right, and never have that challenge, or that you're on the right path, or that you may be missing some information that might help you excel even better. So that's basically me avoiding the fact that I don't have any current certifications, to be honest. I'm just Windows NT4 certified, and that's where basically my certification stopped. But due to that enthusiasm of discovering new technologies and learning how to implement those in my day-to-day administrative tasks, or just the designs and the challenges, or administrative processes within a company, that helped me in staying current with new technologies that evolved, and to find my path in having added value for my customers.
Something I was going to say, kind of along with what you just said, Esther, just kind of reminds me of kind of going back to what we were talking about previously about kind of social practice, that sort of thing. When it comes to like learning new things, one of the best ways to go about that is just to go around your company and just spend some time with the employees and see what challenges they face. There's a lot of times what ends up happening when you do that kind of day in the life study is you find that they're doing things that are just horribly inefficient, and you could improve, you could help them. And so if there's something new that benefits your company, they're going to be very much willing to put something behind that if you make the case for it. And so in other words, you could make it your job to learn new things by just identifying new challenges that are out there that management is probably not aware of. I mean, it's something that I remember saying a lot lately. I'll keep saying it a lot lately, I'm sure. And that's that you weren't hired to be just following orders. You were hired to be an expert in whatever you're doing. And so you can't assume that your management or whoever knows, everything about what needs to be known, because if that was true, they probably wouldn't have hired you. And so stepping into that role, having that confidence to do that is often very important. Now, there's also times where that's a challenge, and you have to kind of learn to kind of sell things a little bit as far as that goes. But a lot of times companies will be very willing to do that. And sometimes they'll even have like continuing education credits for you. And as technologists, sometimes we just have this, I don't know, assumption that our company is never going to help us grow or something like that. Or your company definitely wants you to grow. I mean, it's not, they want you to be getting new skill sets that are useful to them so they can increase the value that you have. And so a lot of times you can actually ask management or HR, what kind of options you have for continuing education or things like that. And you may have programs available to you or credits that can be available to you and things like that you weren't even told about. You didn't even know. So that happens a lot, actually.
And to kind of give an example about what DJ was saying about, kind of spend the day in the life and find out how things can be better. I probably wouldn't be where I'm at today without doing something like that. Back in 99, 2000, when I first touched Citrix, I wouldn't even done it if it wasn't for this. I was working a help desk, right? And there were some remote employees who were downloading stuff to their laptops, a couple hundred megs via dial-up and VPN. And so I went to my boss and said, hey, we need to find a better way to do this. And he goes, fine, go find a better way to do this.
Yes.
And so basically that's why I got started in Citrix. I put everyone coming in through Citrix instead of having to download that across those slow links that took them all day to do, that they could just get in right away. And we did the updates centrally and they were good to go. So don't be afraid to like that, to look for things to improve, to be able to grow and expand, seize things like that. Don't be afraid to take that opportunity.
Yeah. Which would be good for resume or job searching, right, Stephanie? Or
Yeah, are we ready to push on there? Let's see. Yep, job searching and bidding.
we're great at segueing.
I love it. All right, how do we do this, Erik?
Well, job searching and job bidding. I'll just give an overview of bidding. Job bidding. It's a term where there's opportunities within your organization that you can put yourself into consideration for. And oftentimes it's an internal posting only, or maybe there's a few people in the department that are being considered. So that's usually what job bidding is. And I think with job searching, my biggest advice to people on that is it's a full-time job, finding a full-time job. So it's really difficult because it's always better to be looking for a job when you have a job. So it's challenging to work a full day and then put in a couple extra hours every other day to search for a job. But sometimes that's what it takes, is putting in the time. And I think with job searching, that's always been the most important thing, is just put in some time to do everything everyone tells you. You search the job boards, and most importantly, you reach out to your colleagues. And you may not want to advertise you're looking, but certainly get yourself out there. And if you are seriously looking and you can trust people, people want to help you if you let them know you're looking.
I know one of the things that yesterday when we were talking about this topic that you mentioned too was, like the people that, if you're not, like you said, telling people that you're looking, and then like surprisingly they see something that comes across, they're like, oh, I don't want this job. I want, but
Yep.
DJ might be great for it. Or this sounds like something he might be interested in. So there's that too. Yeah.
I think also too, when you are actively searching, you have to put yourself out there and let people know. Sometimes we let our ego get in the way, and I got laid off. And you just need to tell people like, hey, I'm looking for an opportunity, and reach out to your network. And one time I was really looking for a job, and I just decided I really need money. I don't care who knows I'm unemployed. And I just started emailing everyone in my LinkedIn network. And I think I got to the L's or N's because there was a lot of people in my network. But thankfully, I found someone in the L's that got back to me. And that's how I got my job at one of the hospitals I worked at. And I worked there for 5 years. And had I not just put out that heartfelt message, like I'm really looking for a job and I really need a job, I wouldn't have found that job. So it was just effort that found me that job.
Like Brad's question here, the best way to move from a long-time senior tech role into a more managerial director or CTO role, and just to highlight my thinking on that, mentoring is something that you should both do and have done to you. It is something where, if you can find out what something like that does, that question, actually, I'll be completely blunt. That question is what drove me to start interviewing people for the Thrive IT Thrivecast series that we did. Honestly, it was that question. It's like, let's find out what makes them tick. What is different about them? What do they do? What's the progression of the career? What kind of skill sets do they need to be know to be able to be successful at that job? Or what kind of challenges do they face? I found this out pretty quickly when I was like just convinced that I wanted to be like a CIO kind of a thing. And so I started looking into what a CIO actually does and started to attach myself to some of those people and find out what their life was like. And I found out very quickly that I don't want to be a CIO. CTO maybe, but not CIO. And so that changed completely my perspective about kind of the kind of job I was looking for, I guess you could say, but also about just things you don't want to do is a great way to just kind of, I can't remember if it was Esther, you said something about that. I think, just kind of discovering what you don't like is just as important as what you do like. And so there's nothing harmed by having a mentor. You're not taking any risks other than the time.
True.
Yeah.
And one of the other things that I love that you're saying is find what makes others successful and see how you can adapt that to your own strategy or to your own personality. And the reason why I repeat that is because for me, it was very important to understand what behavior others are doing within the community that makes me think they are very successful. In my case, I just called Ruben Spruit in the Netherlands and just asked him, so what was your career path? What were the things that you were doing? But due to neuralistic language programming course that I did, I realized that I cannot just copy his behavior and then be as successful. I have to own it and adapt it to a way that I feel comfortable following that own path. And I think that's one of the most important things also with mentoring or finding a mentor or being a mentor, is that you leave space for your mentee to find their own path and find their own skill set or their own way of reaching their goals. Even if at first they might be tempted to just copy your behavior, just encourage them that it's okay to find your own personal touch to maybe doing the same things or following the same steps. Because then you stay authentic, and that's what people pick up on. And I think then you're already promoting yourself and your own unique skills.
Yeah. And if I could answer the question about making that leap to managerial, I think it's really important, if you haven't been a manager before, that you take some leadership training. There's some things about leadership you just don't know if you don't know. And there are certain characteristics. And I know that leadership training can go a long way to help somebody out in that regards.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be expensive, because there's also very local initiatives like Toastmasters, which offer you opportunities to not just develop your abilities to speech or to present, but also have a lot of leadership focused themes that they will guide you with.
One thing I've heard about, and this kind of ties in the networking and the job searching, is, there's people that talk about the hidden job market, right? So there's the jobs that just aren't out there on LinkedIn or on the job boards. And the way you tap into that is by asking for informational interviews or reaching out to your network saying you're interested in this company. And, you're not directly saying, hey, I'm looking for this job, but I'm interested in this company. And can we chat and talk about the culture, the way it works there? And the more that you do that, you become top of mind, right, to other people, and then think, oh, I was just talking to Stephanie the other day, and she's, been looking at making a change, and, maybe this job hasn't been posted yet, but, she might be a good fit for what you've been talking about. So there's that kind of ties them together. So there's the job market, there's the job listings and postings, and then there's the ones that you don't see and the ones that you don't know about, right? So that's another level. The job searching is finding the hidden market.
Yeah. And I could say you might consider hiring a coach as well if you want to take a step in your career, because sometimes you have to step outside your comfort zone. And I find sometimes it's hard for me to do that. And having a coach is someone that forces you to do those things. And a career coach will hold you accountable to networking and putting yourself out there, whereas you might not be. or it might have some techniques to make you a better leader and do some things to, make you stand out that you're not seeing.
Yeah, or address your fears and make them smaller. That's what
Yes,
happened to
the
me.
counselor.
So what could be the worst thing that would happen? And then I would have like one of those 10,000 scenarios that I thought of. And then they were going, okay, but what probability is it that this will be the scenario that day? I was going like, probably close to none. Okay, so let's talk about the next fear. What scenario do you think now will happen with the knowledge that you now have? And so we had like this whole game where basically he helped me to challenge all these scenarios that I end up just building up in my head and basically that are not helpful for me to stay engaged and to be outgoing and open and curious. So yeah, that also from whether it's a career coach or a life coach perspective helps you in becoming aware of your own unconscious behavior and help you direct that into a more productive way as well.
Yeah, like John Bukud saying, yes, overcoming the paralysis, because that's what it does to you, right? You're too busy worried about, what could happen. And
it never happens. It's always a different scenario than all the ones that I did think about in my head. So that's and even, well, I'm not going to say after 50 years, but even after being 25 plus years in the industry, I still haven't managed to predict that one scenario that actually happened. So it's a lot of energy, and maybe it's not as productive as I thought it would be to feel more confident stepping into unknown territory, so to speak.
Yeah.
And DJ is a coach.
Yeah, I just put a
Oh, I
link in
know.
the chat here. If anybody has never tried coaching before, figuring out something you want to try out, I'm happy to give that as a gift. So just reach out to me and find a time on my calendar with that link, and we'll set up a session and
Yeah.
make it happen. So.
And I must say, I never expected John Bukud as an extrovert or an introvert, he said before, because I've met him at a lot of events. He's a great guy, and he always welcomes me with a big smile and says hello, and he says Swanee, and that goes a long way, is that warm welcome and genuine interaction can go a long way.
Well, John has some methods to that, because there was back when, I think it was a few years ago, one of the Synergy events, he wrote a blog for us on the Introvert's Guide to Synergy and how to survive. I'll have to go find it, but I know he has a method to his abilities there. So I guess it wasn't exactly a segue, so I'll just make it one over to resume writing and interviewing. I chose a microscope because you really are putting yourself under a microscope, right? You are deciding what you want people to know about you, and that may be more than one persona based on things you're going after, right? You may want to have different variations of your resume and who you are, but I think the key to all of it is obviously authenticity and being yourself and showing up as who you are, but you may need to skew things a certain way to highlight this talent over this talent, or whatever it is. So yeah, I'd like to get into that, talking about how we do that.
I can start with interview advice. The one thing I always tell people when they interview is really never say more than you have to. People are going to ask you everything they want to know about you, and sometimes you only have to say one thing or volunteer one piece of information that will disqualify you. And so it's really important in an interview to let the interviewer ask their questions, listen, kind of understand the question, remember the question, don't start talking and then forget the question, and make sure you answer the question properly. And that's a big part of it. And then be quiet. kind of shut up for a couple seconds, and there's that awkward pause, and then they ask another question. And that allows them to get through their questions and discover everything they want to know about you. And it prevents you from giving them too much information. I had an interview today where, somebody was just volunteering a lot of information. I couldn't get my questions out to them. So I felt like I couldn't send them to my customer because their answers were so long-winded and had so much personal information, and they weren't really answering the question. So that was my biggest advice with interviewing.
Sometimes we just need a lot of words to get the message across. Just sticking up for those that just talk a lot. But I do agree that there is you have to find a balance between being open and honest and sharing some information, and make sure that you answer the question, so you zoom in on particularly that topic, and being able to shut up and listen, and also giving the interviewer the opportunity to process all the information that you're throwing at them. So even if it feels for you like an awkward silence, it's actually helping the interviewer process all the answers that you're giving, and picking the right follow-up questions in case you didn't share enough information. Just give them the opportunity to zoom in on, oh, wait a minute, I also wanted to know this or that, now that I processed what you already shared, because that will be probably a more successful interview. And like you're saying, Eric, that will also give you as an interviewer the confidence that we are capable of listening. And while I'm doing this, I realize that I'm partly answering your question and using a lot of words and not enough silence.
And just to add on to this too, some of the best interviews I've been in, whether I'm on the interviewee or interviewer side, has been, is it a two-way conversation, right? Because one of the good things about the good interviews is both sides are trying to find out if this person is the right fit, not just for the position, but also possibly for that company culture as well. In my past, I've been part of some terrible interviews where the interviewer just comes in wanting to play stump the chump, right? It's like, technical stuff can be taught, it can be learned, but the one thing you really want to find out is, like, you don't want to have someone, want you to tell them exactly where this button is on this screen and this thing, but you want to know why that's being applied, what the impact is. And if they don't know something, be honest about it. Say, I don't know that answer, but articulate out how you can find that answer, right? Because a lot of times it's not what you know, it's, how can you figure something out, or how can you work through a scenario if you don't know something. That's the things that can't really be taught. Those are the things that people actually, when they have the passion, when they want to learn or open for learning, they know those things. They know when to say, I don't know, but this is how I can find out, or this is how I would find out. That's the kind of question you're looking for, not whether that someone can play stump the chump and then answer all those questions like a robot. You want something who's adaptable, has that fire, knows where to look, that kind of stuff, not the actual exact answer you're looking for.
Yeah. And Esther said, I think when we spoke yesterday, if you don't know something, just say you don't. You never want to pretend like you do. But show a curiosity towards it and an excitement to learn it and see what it's all about.
Or and we'll we had a whole big discussion about this yesterday. We went on and on. So it's all like, how do we like bring that magic back? But one of the things that we kind of collectively came up with is having a storybook kind of a thing, like a stories that you can tell. If you get practiced in that and telling stories about what you've experienced, then it becomes one of those things where you can kind of say, well, this is how I approach learning about these. It kind of makes it okay to not know things because you're showing ownership. And that right there, I mean, I know, Eric, you and I, in the webinar you and I did a while ago, it was a big piece of that, is like, people, honestly, a lot of times what they really want is someone to just take ownership of problems. They don't necessarily want you to know everything under the sun. The whole stump the chump thing, it's like a good indicator that the person doesn't know how to interview.
and that you're
Yeah.
most likely not the right fit either, within that team. So, because that stump the chump person is probably going to turn to the person or probably throw you under the bus, or try to take credit for everything type of thing. That's probably the person you probably don't want to work with. And I'm fortunate in the past several years not to come across that anymore, but earlier in my career, I came across that a lot.
Yeah. And I've heard some fascinating stories about that kind of stuff too, where, literally to the point where, and interviewing for a book that I'm writing, hearing stories like people being literally hired by accident, nobody wanted them, but they gave the right kind of answers in the kind of HR fashion to bypass a lot of that process. And so it can happen that way too. But the main thing is that if you are able to ask more questions than you are asked, then that right there a lot of times prevents a lot of these kind of scenarios where it's just like they're trying to fill in the blanks with questions that don't really matter in the long run. It's like
they love doing that.
Yeah, and it'll happen, and sometimes there'll be requirements to ask certain questions, and then other questions are basically not required. And so a way to keep from oversharing is to ask questions.
Yeah. And I love how you said stories, because a lot of questions you'll find in an interview from HR that are required of the participants, like an engineer, would be what we call behavioral interview question. And they want someone to tell a story, like, tell me about a time you had a difficult project. What was it? How did it turn out? Or a difficult person? What happened with the relationship? Just all these things, like, tell me about a time you went the extra mile. And if you have this bank of stories, like you were saying, you can pull from that bank. And behavioral interview questions come up a lot, where it's, I put it in the comments, it's a star response. You have to give the situation you're in, the task that you took in that situation, the action of the situation, and what was the result. And the biggest part of some of these questions of behavioral interviewing is, how did it work out? What happened? So that, thank you, DJ. It's really important to say, this is the situation I was in. This was the task I was given. This is how I did it, the action. And the result was we got it done on time, and we had almost no latency on the server. Or, me and this person became great friends in the end. So those are the really important questions you're going to see on an interview.
And along with that too, another thing we talked about yesterday, we absolutely have to bring up, is one of the most important things for you to do is ask questions about the culture of that company. Somebody had said something in the comments earlier, and I think it's important to bring that back up again. It's like, there's really important for you to know that you're interviewing them. I mean, it's a job posting. They need you, right? And so you need to be interviewing them to make sure that they deserve you. And I know a lot of people don't have that positive mindset, but you really do need to get into a situation where you are confident that you want to find the right job, not just a job.
Yep.
There's tons and tons and tons of jobs out there, and when you take the first thing you can find, that isn't always a positive result. So if you can spend a little time and say, you know what, I'm going to believe in abundance. I'm going to believe that there's a plenty to be had here. Otherwise they wouldn't be asking me all these questions. I wouldn't be in that place of an interview if I wasn't already a good candidate. And so if you can put yourself in that position of saying, let's make sure that this is a good fit for me. Mm-hmm. Let me do the asking as well.
Yeah, and that's a great example there, DJ, and what you said, because there's jobs in the past that I've been offered that I turned down because I didn't feel like the culture was right, and that I fit in that culture and didn't want to be a part of that culture that I got from that interview process. So don't be afraid to walk away from opportunities too, as well, if you're not the right fit and that's not the right fit for you.
Yeah.
Positively.
That was my last slide. Unless anybody has any other tips on the resume writing and interviewing, we can open it up for general questions.
I do have one other thing to say about the interviewing, or sorry, the resume writing part of this it's really important for me. And I'll be blunt. I've been sort of like what Jarian was saying earlier. I've been in that situation where I've been interviewing people, as a director of technology. And if I saw something that was just a resume that looks like they give to everybody else, that goes right to the bottom of the pile. And it may be a perfect candidate for the role, but if they aren't giving me a resume that shouts out, I am the perfect person for this role, I cared enough to change my resume to meet what you're saying this job is. If that person didn't go through that much effort, then they're not going to be putting forth that effort for me as an employee. I know that. I've experienced that. And so that's a big key, is if you want to be that person that wants to show up and take ownership and be a good fit for that job, take the 5 or 10 minutes it takes to formulate your resume to highlight the things that they most want to see about what you've done. And like Eric's saying, you don't want to just make stuff up necessarily, but
No.
at the same time, you can highlight things that make their job easier and make you stand out more.
Yeah, absolutely, DJ. And you want to make sure you don't have any typos on it. That's really important. I know it's something simple, but have other people look at it, even if you're making a quick change or you're formatting it from Word to PDF. There could be a change in the formatting. So I think typos is a big thing for that. And you also want to make sure the dates are accurate and match your social media profile. So if you have a resume that's different from your LinkedIn profile, it could be a red flag. Usually people are pretty good with that, but I just try and keep it uniformed and accurate.
Yeah, and I want to respond to Brian's comment here. He says, unfortunately, I have to make it past the automated resume scanners before it gets to the person. AI is really good at that. Well, the reality is that the vast majority of jobs that are out there don't have automated things like that in front of them. Big companies might, but don't limit yourself. Don't do their job for them. Don't just assume that it's going to be a waste of time because you might be AI'd out. That's not a good way to approach that. And sometimes just cover letters or follow-up calls or whatever it is. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do to kind of get past automations and sometimes they're expecting you to do that. So don't limit yourself if you really want a job.
Yeah, cover letter is a great idea, DJ.
Cover letters, and then I was also going to mention post interview, the thank you email, the follow up, the just like keeping your name out, in front of them, and the fact that and if you can make it a personable thank you, not just thanks for the interview, but enjoyed talking about whatever whatever can make you memorable. My opinion really would help you.
No, it's great. Absolutely.
All right. So, it's time for questions. So fire away. I know we've taken a lot kind of as we've gone and we're just about to the top of the hour now, or close to 3. And I think we can hang around a little bit past that. So if you have more questions or specific things you want to ask about, please ask away. That's why we're here, to help, because I know there's a lot of turning over going on out there right now. Without naming any company names, there have been a lot of things in the news, so definitely here to help. And I think that if we scroll back to the chat, I feel like we've gotten to the ones that were in there.
One of the things I always say too, if I can add while you look, is you can always learn things on the job, and then you can at some point contribute in some way, and then over time, if you have patience, you might actually get that job. So sometimes in your career, learning and contributing to the team can lead to a lot of opportunities too. So don't be afraid to help other teams and just kind of learn what they're doing without any expectations.
Here's one from Greg. about tips for someone feels like they've hit a career wall. You're doing a desktop guy. Oh, sorry, the chat keeps jumping.
Yeah.
But that's the most a desktop guy can make. How to break free from a task worker to an idea generator and leading projects.
That's something that, myself and DJ have come on earlier about, look for opportunities to fix a process, to improve something that's being done. Because that example that you give right there, that's how I got started where I am today, was, looking for ways to improve, coming to my manager with an issue and working through possible solutions and improving those solutions out. So don't be afraid to take leaps like that, to see if you find something that can be improved on, that can help you grow in your career. That's where you can go and do things like that. Also, too, Greg Kern says here, the community, that's what the community is about too, as well. Just reach out to look for those people and start working on a solution, buddy up and present on something for your way to grow, then show that possibly maybe it might not be the growth where you're at today, but grow out in other different employers. So.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to speak up or pitch your idea, especially because you want to present yourself as someone that has a lot of ideas. And what helped for me, for instance, is that I went from being very technical and doing all the scripts and trying to promote automation, is that I adapted that story to what, in my case, the customer needed. Because basically they were starting with onboarding their own IT management and teams. And basically they needed more help in figuring out what those standard IT and admin processes were. So I shifted my story and the pitch of how automation can help in shifting it to, instead of just going for scripting and talking about the technical terminologies like DevOps and pipelines, shifting it to process automation, because that hit with them that, oh, this is the part where you are going to add value. And then you can have a whole different conversation where you're zooming in on, you need to know what processes you are going to follow or what your standard procedures are going to be for any request that you might have, whether it is providing a new desktop to a user. And then once you have that basically in a flow, then you can look at ways to make it more efficient. And then you're still talking about processes and not about technology, but then you can get more people on board and in the conversation, and probably have a better podium for pitching your ideas and strategy. So that's just one example.
Yep.
I know we cannot all be process automators, but definitely feel free to get excited and with that enthusiasm present or pitch your ideas. That will probably get you a long way.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And there's a lot of times there's I think one of the things Greg is bringing up here is a big roadblock can be management sometimes. Just because somebody's been promoted to management doesn't make them a good manager. And it definitely doesn't always make them a good leader. That's just a reality. And like Eric was saying earlier, there comes a point where you have to realize that sometimes the best way to go find a job is when you're in a job. And so making that your mission in life to go find something better, obviously giving people the opportunity to let you grow there is always my first response. That's always the kind of the best scenario. Because you've already got the security and they've already invested in you, and likewise. And so if they can, but a lot of times you got managers that they just can't see past themselves. It happens sometimes. And in those kind of scenarios, if you can't go work for another team internally, if it's a smaller team or whatever, and they'll never be able to give you more money. I've faced that scenario. And honestly, that was the impetus of me jumping into the consulting work that I'd done in my life. And, it was really that kind of thing where it's just like, okay, I've hit a ceiling here, and I in order to get past this, I have to leave this behind. And so it was dangerous, of course, but hey, it's what I did. And so there's realities of that sometimes where there's harsh realities to face, that sometimes your mindset doesn't match your employer's mindset. And if it's not ever going to be that way, then it's time to move.
Yeah, in my experience, the really good, great managers out there are the ones that are facilitators and enablers.
Exactly.
And I'm going to throw a Jerry Maguire reference out there. They're the ones that are saying, "Help me, help you." How can I help you? How can I enable you? What can I do to help you get your job done, or to help you with your goals, your aspirations, and so forth? And sometimes just be able to have those touch points with your manager, especially the good ones, they'll have those touch points with you, the regular cadence, to go over and talk about that, to make sure that you're not only on the same page today and what needs to be done within the team, but they start talking to you about what does your next steps look like? Where do you want to go in your career? Those are the great managers and the ones you want to be around.
Yeah, and sometimes what you perceive as a ceiling preventing you from moving up can also be a challenge to move sideways, and then discover then that same ceiling might not be in that position, and allow you to have like your way around that one little roadblock in your career path. So don't be scared to venture and to find your passion and follow that route.
Yeah.
Also take everything Alana's saying in the comments to heart because he's dead on.
Yes.
Yeah, manage up. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, investing in yourself is one of the things I'll say about that. This is always a challenge for people when they, have financial limitations and things like that. When I say invest in yourself, I'm not just saying from a financial standpoint. There's ways to learn more. I mean, and I'm saying this not only as an author, but somebody that has gotten where I am from reading books and things like that. Taking the time to actually do that has been transformative for me. Specifically, I'm thinking of one by John Maxwell when he's talking about the I think it's the 360-degree leader, where he's talking about leading from the side and how people can really manage up, I guess you could say, as the same kind of thing, where you show leadership and kind of do that alongside of the people. You're not above, you're not below, you're right alongside with them. And so those kind of things where you can invest in yourself as a professional, not just as someone who knows the technology, is really key.
I was looking up that book, but there's a lot of titles under that person. So
yeah, John is amazing. He writes a lot of stuff, and that's another thing too. Like getting. Let's see. Esther was mentioning like the
neuro-linguistic programming.
Training, yeah, NLM. So even there's so much out there. I mean, Tony Robbins has so much stuff online about that kind of stuff that's available just going to YouTube or listening to a podcast or things like that. It's not like these are complicated things to find. It's just a matter of following up and actually doing the work to do it, and that's how you get better as a professional.
Yeah, and being a better person doesn't hurt, because I think some of the worst things you can do is have a huge ego and take things personally and, make someone feel uncomfortable. So, I always tell people a leader is somebody that, doesn't want to make people feel uncomfortable sometimes. And I think that's really important because people remember that 10 years down the road when you're like, hey, we used to work together and I'm looking for this job. And if you had a situation where you kind of lost your cool or, that, that sticks with you. So I always say your ego is not your amigo. So learn how to take criticism on the job and don't react to it, because it's never going to help you. Even if you have pride and you're right, it's still not going to help you.
Yeah, it's easy to be wrong when you're right.
But that criticism can also help you grow too, and help you find ways to improve yourself. So, sometimes that criticism can be a blessing to you, depending on what the criticism is and how it's delivered.
Absolutely.
It's true.
Very true. All right. I don't know, Elaine, we should have maybe had you on the panel today. You're lots of good answers out there.
Yeah, let's rewind for at least an hour and then mix it up. Yeah.
Okay, well, I think it's probably a good time to wrap up, I guess. Looks like that, it's been a really, really, really great conversation today and very timely. Definitely appreciate you being on. And I have to say, like, I have loved working with CUGC for all these years. And this webinar is, it's a great one for me to end my time with CUGC on. Just helpful information for the community. And I love that. We just always love seeing the community grow. So I appreciate this last webinar. Oh, my heart.
and thank you, because I think I've done a lot of webinars with you via CUGC, and it's always been a great experience, and sad to see that things are changing, but hopefully we can still do things together going forward. So
yeah. And I see everybody from the CUGC team on here, and I want to say the same things. This has been such an easy journey. I mean, it's like I know how to do this stuff, and I know how difficult it is. And so the fact that the entire Engage Strategies team has been doing this behind the scenes and all the stuff they've done is, in my mind, been very unappreciated or underappreciated, I should say.
Yes.
And I can say that from a lot of perspectives, trying to formulate groups from literally day one of CUGC, even like before CUGC was a thing, and all that kind of stuff. And so it's one of those things where I can't say enough good about all the professionalism and the preparedness and just the ownership that you all have demonstrated. And it's not unnoticed, and I will miss you guys a ton.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
thank
we've had
you.
great people to work with.
Thank
couldn't
you
have said
for
any better than what
making
DJ
us
just said.
shine.
So thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
All. We love you guys.
Even the introverts that need that extra push, you were always there to make us shine. So yeah, I really appreciate that. And we'll definitely find ways to team up and have our next level fun.
Yep. I'm still in World of EUC, so I'll be out there. Speaking of which, if whoever's still on here, if you're not in World of EUC Slack, you should join, because it's a great place to do this community, build with the community, find people to help you. It's a great place to be. Jarian, do they need an invite to that, or they can just look it up?
No. Hold on. I can post a link real quick in the chat.
Yes. Because I know we focused a lot on in-person communities and local initiatives, but I think if we're talking about online community, then because things are changing, World of EUC definitely is a great place to introduce yourself and to find not just job opportunities, but also this awesome group of very knowledgeable people that are very eager to help you troubleshoot and improve your setups. So
yeah, so definitely check that out.
and now we're gonna promote our LinkedIn. This is awesome, DJ.
Okay,
hang on.
make sure
Where's my commercial?
DJ.
Yeah, you got to stay connected, and also kind of watch this space. So I'm not ready to make the official formal announcements yet, but yeah, I've decided to kind of reinvigorate some efforts for some additional community driven stuff. So yeah, so keep an eye out.
Okay.
And I could say, if anybody wants to go to my website, Next Gen Work, recently put together a EUC profile that you can fill out. and it's confidential. And it's a questionnaire put together by an EUC architect. And you can basically just click boxes for what you know and what you want to do. And it will create a confidential profile that, you know, I can help find you a job in confidentiality. So I have to keep up with DJ and do some business development.
Oh, all right. Well, thank you all so much. Definitely feeling the love for CUGC. And I just really appreciate each of you being on here today. It's been such a fun conversation. And I hope for all of the attendees, I really hope that you got something that you can take away to help you, you know, keep moving on up, right? So just everyone stay in touch. I'll send out a link to this recording, and I can put everybody's LinkedIn stuff in that email too. All of these links, and just so everybody can stay in touch.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you so much. I hate to end it, but I have to. Jarian, you have your last Kansas City meeting today, right? And just
starting here in 45 minutes. So.
Oh, he's got to go.
Yeah.
Well, I hope it's a wonderful time. I hope you guys have fun, and I'll look for pictures on the socials later on. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. See you, everyone.
All right. Thanks all.
Bye.
Bye.